Well, greetings. My name is Rick Schwartz, Senior Pastor at First Missionary Church in Bern. And the video you're about to watch explores the intersection between sports and faith in Jesus Christ. And I thought who better to interview than two local high school football coaches, Michael Moser, football coach at Adams Central, and Grant Moser, football coach at South Adams, to talk about these things. So if you're a parent of an athlete, this will impact you. If you're a student athlete, this will impact you. If you're a fan, this will impact you. Basically, if you're a human being with a pulse, I think you'll find this encouraging and challenging. So let's watch together. Well, let's talk to students and athletes. What is a positive trait or traits of this current generation of athletes that you appreciate?
I would say they're devoted. I think they get devoted to a cause. I think if you look at both players on both teams, you see a lot of that. You know, there's a desire to win. There's a desire to get better and to make yourself better. They work hard at it. Those are things that I would say that I really appreciate. You don't see that everywhere, but right. I think if you really do look at both programs, you see the type of kids that we have. They're good kids, they're hardworking kids, and they are devoted.
Yeah, I would agree with 100%. We have great kids. We have very similar programs and communities, like I already said, but kids who want to work hard. Kids want to be coached. They want to be held accountable. Whether you always hear nowadays that kids have changed. Kids are kids.
Parenting might have changed some.
Yes, agreed with that. But
kids are kids.
Kids want to be coached hard. They want to be held accountable. They want discipline. You don't always hear that, but I really do believe that's the truth. And like I said, he said, our kids work hard. We have, as I already said, incredible families in this community, kids that are well raised, and
Good. Well, what's a word of challenge or maybe criticism you would have for this current generation of student athletes?
I would say maybe mentally not as tough sometimes. You have to really be careful on how you discipline. We're just wanting to get the best out of them. Yeah. But the way in which we do it, we have to do it in a way that is going to be unique to every kid. Some kids really want you to yell at them, and they get motivated by that, and they do it. And others, they'll crawl in a hole. So it really is a challenge in coaching to figure out who you can challenge. What players you can really push in that way, or you have to find another way to be able to push.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I agree with that. The biggest thing I think now is probably just how much they want instant gratification. I mean, no more delayed gratification now with TikTok and you're scrolling on your phone every 10 seconds something new. Yeah. With social media in general, and I mean, we're back in the days of the dial-up internet, and I remember Napster waiting for how long for a Nelly song to download, and now it's everything at fingertips. So I think they want things now. So I guess the biggest, maybe lack of patience.
Lack of patience would be one.
Yeah. So speak to our student athletes watching. How can they grow in these areas, would you say?
One area, just understand that we love them as coaches. We love them. We care for them. We're a second parent to them in a lot of ways, and don't always take what we're saying to heart in terms of as taking it personal. We're not out to get you. We want the best for them, and I think they have to remember that.
Good.
Well, as he just said, we're second parents. I mean, you look in season, we're with our kids 20 plus hours a week, and a lot of times as a teenager, maybe you're not at home that long, or with your parents that long. You're in your room or home for dinner, and that's about it. So we're with them, not with the kids more than they're with their parents.
Absolutely.
So like you said, just making sure that they know we love them. We do get on kids, and when we do, the nice thing, our staffs are very similar, and I know I tell my coaches, if I chew a kid out or you chew them out, someone better be there to pick them up and put their arm around them and make sure they know that they're still cared for and loved.
Good. Yeah.
That's I think we're kind of similar in that way too.
Yeah, we do.
You both seem like coaches that encourage your kids to be involved in multiple sports, the community, youth group. Yeah. Why do you encourage them to do that and not just maybe specialize in football year round?
It makes them a well-rounded person. To be able to be around other sports, be around other people, things like that are vital. I mean, in all honesty, most of our kids are not going to the next level. They're going to get a degree and start their life. And that's the type that we're going to push. It's very rare that we're going to get someone. In the years that I've been coaching, I maybe have had a handful of kids that went to the second level. A lot of our kids don't.
You mean play at college?
Yeah, play at college.
Yeah.
They just don't go to the second level. A few of them do, but even those that do don't always finish it out. They just focus on their degree. We get a lot of that, I think, in both schools.
Yeah, absolutely. Well-rounded is the way to put it. I mean, we want our kids to compete year-round.
Yeah.
So we want our kids wrestling or swimming or playing basketball. They want them
Yep.
baseball. I mean, track. We want them competing year-round. So they're learning, like you said, those things you learn through athletics, not just through football, where you're doing it 9-10 weeks a year, but you're doing it year-round. We have a rule in our program where if you're not in at least one other sport, you can't be a football captain. So we really do push multi-sport athletes. And being a smaller school like we both are, we know that to be successful in sports, we need our kids playing multiple sports. So we really are against kids specializing, obviously, at a smaller school.
Well, let's talk to parents of athletes. Can you tell when a parent is overly consumed with their kids' playing time?
No.
No, we have no idea on how that.
Never seen that before.
What are some signs of
Well,
that? Yeah.
we do get it, but we probably don't get it as much as what they would at Little League level or
Agreed.
somewhere
Yes.
down there, where by the time they get to us,
Yes.
the parents calm down and they realize, okay, my kid is not going to be a D1 player. I think there are signs where, if a parent is coming to me and talking about playing time, that's a red flag. I don't want to talk to parents about playing time. I don't know about you.
Agreed.
And I tell them in my meeting is like, listen, okay, it is subjective. If you're going to talk to me about playing time, I said, and I tell them this, there's only there's two reasons why they're not playing. Number one, they're not good enough, unfortunately. I mean, that's a reality.
Right.
The best will play. Or two, they're not playing because their attitude is terrible. So those two things, if you want to talk, that's what it's going to be. I'm going to talk to a parent, of course, but I really don't want to. I want to talk to their kid. I want to work with their kid instead of working with a parent who is definitely biased. And Grant and I, we have great staffs. We're not making the sole decision on the kid. It is a consensus of the staff. I'm not making that total decision. I'm going to find out what my defensive guys are going to say or my offensive guys are going to say. So I think if the parents have to be willing just to back off and let us coach. And I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. We tell our parents in the preseason meeting, we won't talk to you unless your kid talks to us first. And we love to sit down with the players and here's how you improve. They come to us and say, hey, how do I play more? Here we have a list. Here's what you need to get better at. And maybe it is attitude. Maybe it is, work ethic, whatever it is. But we give them that list first and foremost. And like you said, I tell parents, I have 10 coaches on staff who are evaluating players constantly. You as a parent, I know Jimmy's awesome, but all 10 of us are watching every day.
Right.
And again, we want to win. We're not gonna. Well, they have the right last name.
That doesn't win. We want to win.
Correct.
We're not playing names.
Yeah, we don't care
that's
about
the biggest criticism
Correct.
we get is, they didn't have the right name.
Yeah.
That's baloney. I mean, it really is.
The right name's Moser.
That's right. It is. But we want to win. I'm with him. The best will play, and we want the best to play. We're not here to win a popularity contest.
And I think so many parents want to maybe live vicariously through their players, and they put so much value on. Well, my son, if he's a great player, people are going to maybe respect me or like me more. People aren't going to care about you based on your son's talent. Now, I think I heard a quote somewhere that said, people will judge you based on the way your son maybe carries himself and his attitude on the field more than they'll care about how far he throws the football. I don't know, but that's probably what I would say.
I wanted my son to be a quarterback, and he started out being a quarterback. I was a quarterback. I thought, well, my son needs to be a quarterback. Well, it wasn't his skill set, and he did not want to do it, and I wanted him to do it. And so the other coaches too were like, Michael, it's not his skill set. It's not his skill set. So I understand the parent position very well, after having to coach my son and realizing that my son doing what I did, that's not going to happen, And so you have to be able to take those things in perspective.
Yeah. My younger daughter will probably play offensive line for me. I think right now with her attitude.
She could do it.
And the way she could put down food sometimes.
Well, give a final word to parents. Preach a final word, whether encouragement or challenge for parents today of athletes.
What you got?
Just be patient with us and trust us. I think the biggest thing is we don't we don't tell a parent how to parent their kid, and they have to be careful not to tell us how to coach.
Yeah.
And I think that's that balance. I'm going to talk to a parent, and I don't want conflict, and I'm going to try to solve conflicts. But I think that's the biggest thing is, we're not perfect. We want the best for your kid. Give us, just give us the patience in that, and give us a trust that's going to happen. And it may not happen the way you want it. That's the hard part of life.
Yeah.
It may not happen the way, but trust that we're doing what is best for the team. We coach a team sport.
Correct.
We don't coach in individual sports. We coach a bunch of individuals on the team, but it's about what's best for the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that 100%. Be patient with us, but use us as a resource too.
Yeah.
I mean, we care about your son. We do. That's why we coach. We love football, but we love developing young men. I mean, we talk all the time about. I know he does the same thing about. Our goal is kind of develop these kids to grow up to affect our community and be great husbands and maybe great fathers someday. So it's both of our passions. So again, use us as a resource. Talk to us about your son. If you think he's struggling with something, we're here for that. That's why we coach.
Well, one thing I learned about both you guys, and it was a little bit surprising to me in a good way, is how much stress and pressure you feel as leaders and head coaches. So tell us about that. How do you deal with that stress and pressure as a leader?
So it definitely is, especially in bigger games. Unless some games aren't as big, but
Right.
I mean, we've both been to the state championship where I mean, it gets the whole community behind you. Everyone's talking about it. Where there's those Friday nights where the entire week, every conversation that I have is about Friday night. Are we going to win? I'll tell you Friday. I mean, that's one of the worst questions I hate. Don't ask me if we're going to win before Friday night.
How do you want me to answer that question?
Want to be honest?
No.
I mean, people care about, which is good. It's a good thing. I mean, it's a good thing to be at the forefront of as head coach of something that people are so passionate about, which is pretty cool, I think, and a huge blessing, but also a huge responsibility that we don't take lightly. And this pressure, and we always tell our kids, if you have pressure, it's a privilege because you've earned that pressure. So with that comes anxiety. I've been on anxiety medicine now for about 5 or 6 years, and my wife will say the first thing is, why do you have that? She'll blame football, and she's right. That's probably the biggest stressor in my life, but also one of the most satisfying things in my life. Going to state's probably one of the coolest things I've done professionally, I mean, ever. So, like I said, very rewarding, but also can cause a lot of anxiety at the same time.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. And we were talking before. We just get nervous. I mean, and I don't know why. I've been doing this for so long. It really is an old hat. I know what I'm doing. I feel good about that, but I still get nervous on Friday nights. I've been on mood medication for some time now, and it doesn't fix the anxiety. It doesn't fix the stress, but it helps regulate my moods a bit so that I'm at least better at home. And that's really where it was. You sometimes feel like the ones that you love the most get the pressure of everything else, and then outside of that I feel like I'm fine, but when I'm home I'm not. So that's been a big challenge.
I love you on Friday nights because I go home on Friday nights and my wife and I take a blanket and put it over my head and she goes, "There he goes into the cave, into the cocoon." She knows this. I'm trying to slow my heart rate down a little bit. But she always says, which I love. She says, "Remember that no one probably cares as much as you do about Southern's football. It's good to remember that sometimes. That it's not as big a deal to as I think it is sometimes to everybody else." And that helps me calm down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your honesty about experiencing anxiety, being on medication. What would you say to someone who's watching, who's experiencing anxiety, but maybe ashamed to tell someone or get help? Because I think as men, we're especially.
I don't think there's any shame in it at all. I mean, it's no different than taking medicine for whatever ailment that you have. I'm on cholesterol medicine. I don't feel.
I definitely am on cholesterol medicine as well. Definitely.
So I'm on. I just don't think it's an issue anymore of shame. I don't feel ashamed by that. I feel like it's something a tool that helps me. Regulate who I am. And I would strongly suggest people who struggle with it. I think anxiety is something people struggle a lot with.
I agree.
See your doctor and see what needs to go on, because it's just life sometimes is hard and life is a struggle. And I think things like that are helpful. You should be able to pursue.
We grew up with, I think, kind of a stigma of mental health, and if you're a guy, you got to be tough, and you can't be sensitive, and you can't have issues, and if you're depressed, just we'll figure it out and be tough or whatever. And again, that's couldn't be farther from the truth. So like you said, don't be proud. Talk to a physician. Talk to us. I mean, ask us. Ask us. We're open to that too. Obviously, have that conversation.
Talk to your pastor.
Yeah,
talk to your pastor.
There you That's
go.
a good
We're
one.
open to talking to.
I hadn't thought of that. It's a good idea.
Well, what keeps you coaching when it's tough and you feel the pressure? Because I'm sure there's a temptation to quit, do something else. What keeps you going?
For me, it's my family. Obviously, my wife, which is awesome, loves football. And loves talking football. We watch games together, and she'll call out things that she sees, which is incredible. And then she loves, when I come home on Friday nights, the coaches come over, but I have to go to her first and go through the game, see what plays I called wrong, which is usually a long list she has for me. But it's cool to talk football with her, and my daughters enjoy being around the game. I take them to practice, and they enjoy being there. They enjoy some of the meeting the players and the managers and the cheerleaders. And I love, like I said, I love the coaching staff. Some of the best times are watching the game on Friday nights after the game with the coaches and reminiscing, eating pizza, hanging out. Like you said, the bus rides and just being around the players in general. The relationships, I would say, definitely keep me around it.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. My wife, though, is not gonna be that. I mean, she's a football fan, but she is not gonna be like your wife in that respect. But I think she really enjoys it, and I think she really loves that I do it, and that she's a part of it too. She's an AC football fan. She has been forever. And I know you would say the same thing. We can't do what we do without our wives. I mean, a coach's wife is somebody very special.
Well, let's talk about the Adams Central South Adams rivalry. We love it here in Adams County, right?
One of it's rivalry the last couple of years, really, though.
Yeah.
Call that.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about, as head coaches, and approach this rivalry between AC and SA?
Well, I think there's a lot of hype. There's sometimes too much hype behind it, and I think because all of a sudden it seems like the TV guys don't come down until it's
week 6 every year.
It's week 6, and then they tend to make it a whole lot bigger than what it actually is. And I always tried to tell our kids, hey, it is a rivalry, but in all honesty, it's just another game.
Yeah.
It is, and we have to get past the hype of it all and just go and play the game. We don't hate each other. We want to beat each other.
Yeah.
We want to win. We don't like to lose. Okay, that's guaranteed for both sides. But we can't let that break friendships. You can't let that tear up family. There's more to life than AC versus South Adams. There is. And I think
say that again real quick so I can make sure I get that.
Yes,
We can hear you.
there is more to life, and we're Christian brothers, we compete. Yes, I know they want to beat us and they don't like to lose to us, and nor do we, but yet I respect them, I respect what they do, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he said it perfectly. And part of the reason is that we've both been successful. I mean, the last decade, we both in the top 10 ranked in the state, and we play. And
Every year we are.
And the media comes down that week, and there are interviews all over the TV and social media. And like I said, the biggest thing I think is we play in the postseason because it's an emotional game.
It is emotional.
Kids invest so much, and we're playing for their careers to be done as seniors. So I mean, that adds so much more to it. And like I said, now that they're 2A, I think that will make it a little bit better. But there's been games where we haven't talked for about a week.
I know.
And then we send a text.
Yeah, we're good.
We figure it out. But yeah, it's an emotional game, and that's we pour so much time and energy into it. That's what makes it. That's what makes it fun too. It makes it because you want to win.
Right.
But like you said, we're very similar as we're Christian men, and our staffs are full of Christian men.
Yep.
We have a lot of friends on our staff, so they get along quite a bit. So I think that it is cool that, like I said earlier, the camaraderie among coaches.
Well, how do we know when we as fans of the SA-AC rivalry have taken it too far? Do we ever take it too far?
I have experienced a little bit of that in my life, going from South Adams to AC, and I've lost some friends. So I had family members that really struggled with this, and so it really, from my perspective, it's a game. It should never destroy family or friends ever. So if that happens, it's gone too far. It can't. I really am Michael Moser. If you know me, that's who I am. You're Grant. We're people. There's no reason why just because I wear red and you wear black and gold that we should. That's where I feel like it's gone too far. Is if it breaks families or relationship, that's a problem.
Yeah. I was just saying, if it's ruining relationships, so I would maybe should say view it as Purdue-Indiana rivalry, where maybe you'll give someone a hard time about it, but you're not having animosity toward that person because they're a Purdue fan or not a U fan. I mean, it's a game. It is. It's a football game.
The problem is it is emotional, and that's
definitely.
the difference between I think IU and Purdue is because this gets so emotional because this is your roots, right?
Yeah.
And this is where you're coming from. High school, so that's what makes it hard.
Yeah,
Right.
It is definitely.
Talk about your relationship a little bit. You've alluded to it a little bit. Do you guys stay in contact during the year, during the season? What does that look like?
I wouldn't say we're like super close,
but we contact throughout the year. I mean, multiple times about different things. Obviously, I'll text him when they're at state and wish him good luck, things like
Same
that. Part of the reason I coach is I feel kind of a calling to be a father figure because I grew up. My dad passed away when I was in third grade. And you were a teacher and a coach for me, and I needed the male role models in my life. So I turned to Michael and I turned to Kirk Sorg, like we said, and Jason Ridge, some of those guys, and now giving back. I think in 2019 was the year. 2018, I forget what year it was, but I had 12 seniors, and I think only like 7 or 8 of those guys actually, or like maybe only 3 or 4 that actually lived with their biological father at their house. So, I mean, being able now to kind of try to give back and be a father figure like the guys like he were for me. Yeah. When I was young and needed that role model was kind of cool.
Yeah. And we do have a lot of respect for each other. We really
definitely.
do. I respect. I probably don't tell him this enough, but I do respect him and I respect what he does. Even though it's different, we're power. We do things differently. We have different philosophies, but there is that respect that's there.
So let's talk about coaching a little bit more and being a follower of Jesus. How does being a follower of Jesus affect the way you coach, affect the way you lead? How does that impact that?
I guess I would say I want the players to see Jesus in me, and obviously I fall short of that all the time, as we all do. I mean, I screw up all the time. I had someone tell me when I got the job right away, you're going to be the first one that finds out when your player's going to become a dad. So before the parents, I said, okay, that's kind of far-fetched. But it's happened multiple times here where the player comes to me and says, hey, my girlfriend's pregnant, and what do I do? And I just have to kind of walk them through that process and things like that, where I was not ready for that when I came head football coach. But again, that's why we do, because we want to guide our kids as we think Christ would, and that's why we coach, and that's why we teach, and that's why we're in education. We have a passion for that.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, in life, if you accept Christ and you live that out, you should be living that out in everything that you do. We'll pray before and after games, and I have no problem sharing my faith or talking about my faith, and I feel like if God has put me in this position, I need to use it, for that factor. I'm not going to force it on kids, but I can't be somebody that I'm not. I'm a Christian, and therefore that's going to come out in my coaching.
Yeah. So what do you want your legacy to be? Someday you'll retire someday, or maybe at your funeral someone's talking about Coach Moser.
Oh boy.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh boy, that's a big one. So I stole this from another coach, but we have our seniors every year. We call it the legacy paper that they write, and with that paper, and then we make them actually be vulnerable and share it with the team. If you're an 18-year-old boy, you don't like necessarily being vulnerable with your teammates. But we ask them 4 categories, and we say when it's all said and done, and people talk about you and your legacy, kind of how do you want to be remembered? And the first one is as a starfire football player. What people say about you. And then we go farther than that, and we say as a son. When you're gone, what do your parents say as a son? How were you? How did you behave? How did you carry yourself? And then go farther and say someday when you're a husband, how do you want to be talked about by your wife and other people? And then someday as a father, how do you want your kids to talk about your legacy you want to leave? So we have them write out paragraphs for those 4 categories, then read them to the team. And that gets, like I said, it's very vulnerable for an 8-year-old kid to talk about the husband and father they want to be someday. Then we actually make them read one of those at the banquet, which they really dislike. So I think that's a good thing to look at in the mirror sometimes and think to myself, am I leaving a legacy I want to leave? And there's times where I'm sure that I do things that would not be the legacy I want to leave. But again, I guess I want to be remembered as someone who just could always be there for players. They could be approachable, and they come to me when they had problems or issues or whatever it is that's bigger than football. And we talk all the time. We coach because we love the game, but I mean, what a blessing to be able to be in a profession that we're passionate about. It also gives us a chance to lead kids in the right direction.
Yeah. Hopefully it's that I had a passion for football. I coached to the best of my ability. I was able to get things out of kids that maybe other people couldn't. And like you said, I think it's about relationships. Did Coach Moser care? Did he care about me, and did he care about the success that more on a football field, but the success in people's lives? That's what I hope, that they say he cared, and he always tried to do his best.
Well, we have a lot of people watching who are probably coaches, whether paid or volunteer, or even T-ball coaches. I always think there's a special place in heaven for T-ball coaches. Yeah.
There is.
There is, yeah. What words of wisdom would you have for them as leaders, whether it's a coach, teacher, somebody who's influencing a younger person, a mentor? What word of wisdom would you have for them?
Well, I think you can. We've already said this. Don't make it about winning all the time. There's nothing wrong with striving to win. There's nothing wrong with pushing kids to be their best, but especially at that level, make it fun.
Yep.
Okay, don't be. You shouldn't be chewing out kids at that level.
No.
Yeah.
Let us. They can handle it by the time they get to us.
Yes.
But to chew out a kid at the T-ball level or Little League level, I sometimes see that and I just cringe, because it's like, what is going on? I think there's enough problems in today's world that the kids need something fun, and sports is an avenue for that fun, and it's an avenue for growth. These kids are growing and developing into the type of players that we're going to have one day. I don't want someone who can't handle keeping things in perspective driving a kid away. I don't want a negative feeling about sports or athletics because of one crazy coach who chewed out kids in Little League. So my advice is, make it fun, make it relational. Yes, strive to win, but never, please, don't belittle kids. I think that's the thing. Don't belittle them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We tell our youth coaches in football, 2 things you worry about is, are they having fun? Are they learning fundamentals?
Yeah.
Fun and fundamentals.
Yes,
That's what it's all about.
Yep.
And I guess my advice would be, are you teaching life lessons? And there's so many life lessons taught through athletics, whether, like we always talk about how to win with grace, how to lose with grace, how to compete, how to be a great teammate. Again, how to carry yourself. So many things you can teach through athletics, even at the T-ball level. So are you teaching that as a coach?
Yeah, that's good. Well, how should we as Christians think about and approach sports overall? How can we have the right perspective? I don't think we think enough about this as believers.
Well, I think what I said is, if church is here, God is here, relationship with Christ here, and sports is up here, you have to be very careful. As Christians, you got to keep things in perspective. That your walk with Christ is the number one thing. That your church body is your church family. That's got to become number one to you. I think there's a lot of parents who want their kids to get scholarships and want them to move on, and I think sometimes they lose a little focus, and they tend to put that at the top priority rather than focusing on their walk with Christ. I've known people that, again, in the world of especially football, we don't get this as much, but baseball, basketball, volleyball, softball, the Sundays are a sacred day for that. And I think as Christians, we have to choose what day is sacred. What is important. Sometimes I think there's just too much of an influence upon sports and not enough focus on what really matters, and that is your Christian walk. So as parents, I think you need to be careful about, nothing wrong with going on travel teams. Travel teams are fine. You know, and I encourage it. I don't think it's bad, but when it becomes something that engulfs your life, I struggle with that. I really do. I think, did I answer that question?
That was good.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, I would go on the same thing and say my daughter, she's only 8, so I haven't been through it all yet, but she's a very good softball player. I mean, she was MVP of the team, whatever. Because like her dad. But again, obviously, she's a very good quizzer also, and my wife and I got deep into quizzing and went and learned a ton of the Bible, and when we look back as parents and were we successful raising our children, I don't care how good she was at softball. I mean, that's great, it's fun, but she learned the Bible. Is she a Christian? Is she gonna go to heaven? That's obviously what we look back at.
That's got to be number one.
Yes.
Has to be.
Yeah. So tell us how long you've been coaching, especially as a head coach at your respective schools.
Go ahead.
Okay. I've been coaching 15 years as the head coach, over 20 years coaching at various levels. You know, I've started at the middle school and moved my way up to varsity, but I've been coaching 15 years.
Okay.
I've coached 14 years total, 10 years as head coach at South Adams. I've been at SA all 14 years, and then for some reason they hired me. I don't know if no one else applied or what, but head coach for 10 years now at South Adams.
Very cool. So what led you to be a coach, especially a head coach?
Oh, that's a tough question. I never anticipated being a head coach. You know, I went into education because I loved history and I loved teaching. I felt like I had a gift to teach, and I really wanted to get into that. And I thought I would do some coaching on the side. And I was hired at South Adams in '98 and wanted to be involved in the football program. So I started at the middle school level and was the head track coach for a number of years there. And so that's where I kind of got myself indoctrinated into head coaching, and I felt like I really enjoyed that. I felt I got a little bit of a knack to do it, and I felt the Lord calling me to do that. I thought it would be at South Adams. I really did. I knew that Kirk Sorg, who I highly respected, was going to retire in a few years, and I was really feeling like when that happens, I'm gonna apply for this. I felt the Lord calling me into that position, and then it just didn't work out, and I felt called and led. Both my wife and I were called to kind of go back home to Adams Central, which is where I graduated from, where she graduated from, and an opportunity arose that I wasn't expecting, and it just happened. You know, I was young. They thought I might be too young. I'm sure you felt that, just like, he's too young, he's not ready for this. You know, and how do you replace Rick Minnick, who's been there for 30 years, you know? So there was a real hesitancy, but I ended up getting the job and felt like the Lord wants me to be there. So hope that's not too long of a response.
That's great. It's a calling, it sounds like.
That's kind of, you know, I feel it's a calling.
Yeah. Good. How about you, Grant?
Yeah, maybe the opposite. I always kind of thought I wanted to be a head coach. So I remember as a kid even being upset when South Adams football would lose. I mean, 3rd grade, 4th grade, going to games and being upset because South Adams lost. Then in high school, I remember I tell people I'm going to be the head coach here someday. And if you ask anyone then, they would be like, no, you're not. But came back, and then the opportunity presented itself, like you said. I was 25 years old and talked to my wife, and we prayed about it, and she kind of talked me into it and said, I think it's time. So I remember this vividly. I go into the athletic director, was Jason Arnold. And I said, I think I want to be a head coach. And he said, wow, I didn't see that coming. I said, okay, well, maybe it's meant to be. But interviewed and lucky enough to get the job. Had some people that believed in me and talked me into going for it, like Scott Steiner and Craig McCain and Jesse Odell, some of those guys who have been huge for me as mentors. I was the youngest coach in the state when I was 25. So like he said, a lot of pressure when you're the youngest head coach in the state. And that first year was kind of just trying to keep head above water. But like you said, the longer it went, the more comfortable I feel. And I mean, it's what a blessing to be in very similar communities where so much football support and great families and great kids.
Yeah, good. And thinking about your staff, how do you care for your staff and lead them and empower them?
Are you just buying pizza? Usually?
Yeah, that one works. That works.
No, I mean that's important. And like he said earlier, he has we have very small staff, but we have some that are older, some that are younger. I mean, I'm very blessed to have both my brothers on staff, Clark and Heath. It was cool to kind of grow our bond as brothers going through. I mean, the ups and downs of coaching together is kind of cool. I have a bunch of mentors on my staff, which is kind of strange. I'm the head coach and the leader, but I have guys who've mentored me through my life, like I mentioned earlier, some of those guys. But just a staff who is fun to be around. I like to think that I try to hold them accountable, and they hold me accountable at the same time, and I ask their opinions on things. But it is a huge blessing to have friends on staff, and people that I trust. And just Christian guys who we all want the same thing. We all care about kids. We want kids to grow up to be Christian men and can follow that walk.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily perceive myself to be a mentor of the guys, because I just feel like we're all, we're all equal. We just have different duties and jobs that we do. Unfortunately, I have to be the more of the administrative, and I have to be, the buck always seems to stop with me as the head job. But I rely on those guys. They mentor me in a lot of ways, as you say. It's a brotherhood. They also can tell me when I'm wrong, and that's the key to coaching, really, is to be able to handle that criticism and to have people on your staff, okay, who are not afraid to tell you, Michael, no, that's not a good decision, and I love that, and that helps us grow. And I think we hold each other. I love what you said. We hold each other accountable. We push each other to be the best that we can be as well.
How do you guys balance work, coaching, family, life? Do you balance it? How's it go?
I go back and say you have to have an incredible spouse to help you out with that, because there's times where things are so busy, and someone that's so supportive with this, but being able, I think, to put family first, make sure her needs are met, make sure I'm with my kids all the time. I mean, it's really easy to come home from practice, and especially when my kids were younger. I think I heard this on a podcast, or maybe they said, but easy to come home and just put your feet up and relax because you've been teaching and then coaching for 3 hours. But they said you better get home and get on the floor and play with your kids, because you haven't seen them all day, and that'll be gone before you know it, where your kids are growing up before their eyes and out of the house. So are you putting the time in with your kids where they feel that you are, that they're more important than football. My families know they're more important than football is to me. I think that, and there's times where that is sometimes probably hard, and I screw up with that, but that's got to be the forefront, I think, of my thoughts.
Yeah, all my kids are out. I have my youngest son, Josh. He's at Ball State. He's getting married this summer, so we're going to have empty nest. So I have, my 2 daughters that I raised, and Josh. And I don't know. There were some things I did right, some things I did wrong. I do feel like they feel that that Dad cared more about them than he did football, and I really feel that. That's got to be the number one thing. Family is so important. There are times that I wasn't home. There were times that I was busy, and there were times I'm sure that they wanted to be with me on certain things that I couldn't do, or that we couldn't go because of football, especially in the summertime. But a strong spouse is so important, and I have that, and our kids. I love the fact that I had Josh. And he was a kindergartner when I was hired to coach, so he's always been on sidelines, and he is one of my greatest critics. He's always, Dad, what are you thinking here? Or Dad, you need to do this. And I love that relationship that we have, and it's good. But you do have to keep things in perspective. Family is always number one, and football is just a job that we do. And not saying I was perfect in that, and there are things that I probably regret that I didn't spend as much time on, but you got to try your best to keep those in perspective.
What's your most embarrassing moment as a coach?
Oh, so many.
Oh boy, I don't.
So many.
The most embarrassing moment that I felt embarrassed is against South Adams, and it was in the sectional. You were not coaching then. It was. I want to say Derek Warner. It'd be his junior year, I think. We were moving the ball, and it was tight. I mean, the games that year were tight, and it was in the sectional. And I decided to throw a reverse pass.
I do remember that.
That got picked
Isaiah
off.
Amsis?
Yes.
Yep, I do remember that.
That got picked off
Yeah.
and we lost the game.
Mm.
That was the worst moment as a head coach ever. Yeah.
See,
Because it was clearly me. It was clearly me.
that's the thing about football compared to other sports. Is
Yeah.
as a coach, you're so involved in the play calling. Where
Yes.
take volleyball or even basketball,
Right.
I mean, basketball a little, but even
Yeah.
football, you have so much influence on the game as a
Uh-huh.
play caller. Whereas like volleyball, it's in the
Yeah.
cross country, it's
Yeah.
practice. But then once the meet your tournament gets there, it's the athletes. In football, it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was nothing the kids did. It was
Yeah.
it was the stupidest call. So I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed.
Do you guys both call the offensive plays and defense too? Or-
No.
No.
Okay.
Don't call
But you always
Both
call every offensive
have
play.
pretty good defensive
Yeah.
coordinators.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Grant? Most embarrassing moment?
Man, there's a lot there's a lot. As far as like actual coaching, 2019 losing to Adams Central was rough because we were the #1 team in the state and had beaten them
Yeah.
handily,
Pretty good.
handily in the season.
Yeah.
And they just outcoached us. We had injuries. It was a perfect storm, but that was hard because then there's so much
Yeah.
hate coming from
Everybody.
so
Sure.
many things. Parents and getting stopped after the game by some parents. I'm like, okay, bad time to come talk to me right now. But I mean, yeah, stuff like then the state obviously was 2-point conversion. That was hard to swallow.
Yeah.
Which I would do that again. I might call it a different play.
I do. I would have done that.
Yeah, we had to do that.
Yep. I would have done that.
I might call it a different play, but
But that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Exactly.
never know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
so there's times where I also think about that. I mean, I'm sure you've had some of those in state too. But but that came down to that actual 2-point play.
That was
how
that,
we lost.
we were getting beat.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
that was
down to the end like that. That was
a
hard.
tough one.
Not as embarrassing necessarily, just more maybe
Yeah.
regretful a little
Yeah.
bit and things like that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, how can the church, I'm thinking of the church overall, support you guys, and how can the church and sports work together for good?
Ooh, wow.
Second one's quite.
That's a loaded question there. I think again, just kind of what off the top of my head is we need to remember that we all want the same things. You know, as the church, I go to First Mennonite, you go to the Bridge. We're here at First Missionary. We're brothers and sisters in Christ. You know, we're in the same thing here. We need to support each other. We need to lift each other up as often as we can. Not use sports to tear down. We need sports to build up and bridge us and understand that I'm an AC fan. You're a South Adams fan. It's okay, but the church should never use that again to be divisive ever. We need to use it as a means of supporting one another and encouraging one another as a body of believers.
Yeah, and I would say again, I said this earlier, but I agree wholeheartedly. That's great. But we have a very, very supportive community. I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the negatives with parents and stuff.
Yeah.
But we have an incredibly supportive community for the most part. I know you do too.
Yeah.
The amount of texts and calls that I get after wins and losses, and throughout the season and I would say 99% are positive things,
Yeah.
which
They
are
are.
awesome. I mean, that's
They
so
are.
cool that so many people care enough to reach out
Yeah.
and encourage us and just thanks for pouring the time into the kids. I mean,
Yeah.
that means a lot when
Means a lot.
people show how much they care, and people might laugh, but again, this is a dream job for me, a South Adams football coach, which people might laugh at and scoff at, say whatever. But even since I was young, that's what I wanted to do. So to be able to be in this position with the community I love and grew up in, and people I love, I mean, and a family that supports me, beyond my wife, even just my parents and in-laws and siblings is a real blessing.
Well, thank you guys so much. We'll be
Right.
praying for you and
Right.
supporting you and cheering you on.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it.